my going down the rabbit hole of mini DVRs. So this is one of the things where you start doing something thinking it's a good idea and you can't stop yourself. So you may look at this and say, what the hell is he thinking? Okay, so when I started, when David got me started in doing this stuff 8 or so years ago, the first thing I started doing was direct to USB directly to my laptop. I was having some problems when I started doing it that way with drop frames, and this was an old XD computer. This was 8 years ago, but the computer at the time is probably now a 12-year-old computer. So after that, and also portability issues and things like that, David, strongly twisted my arm to switch over to going to the Canon solution of recording. So I purchased a used ZR65, and I started using the ZR65s exclusively. First one I got, used on eBay for $30, $40, whatever it was. It lasted 4 years and was completely reliable for that 4 years. I just loved it. And then finally, it just stopped being able to record, and it would only give me either the jail bars or just the blue screen when I tried to record. Since then, I've bought at least 7 more than I can remember. And recently, most of them have been failing within a month or two of me putting them into service. And it's the same way. And I tried cleaning them. I tried cleaning them multiple different ways, and I can't bring them back. So certainly, if anybody has any ideas or somebody wants me to ship them 7 dead ones, I'm happy to do it. My wife would love me to do that. So right now I have 2 that sort of work, but they're not 100 that. And I think, Richard, was it you and I who were talking about this over the winter? You recommended trying the DVRs. So I thought, well, let's go down that path and see if that works. And my thought initially was to use as a backup for the Canons, where I'd have a video splitter and the Canon would be doing the primary recording, but if I had a problem, I'd have a backup and I'd still have some data. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so before I went down the DVR path, I did try to go back to direct recording. So I added a video amplifier distributor in my observatory. I purchased a cheap brand new desktop computer for that, and also some other things I was using. My old video card that I had been using on that first computer no longer would work, at least for the computer I had there, so I bought one of these cards that goes inside your desktop. The software that came with that was really good software. You could do like the new software we're going to have, where you can pre-program events, and it worked really well. At least twice when I had that computer system, I had a ZR fail, and I had complete high-quality backup data. So that worked out really well, except for the fact that after a single winter in my unheated observatory, that desktop computer just completely went south. It died instantly. And I wasn't going to put money after good money on that. So I actually had, in the fall, I had a nice positive live. I didn't have a backup. The ZR failed, and all I had was dicey video data where I said, yeah, it blinked out around here and it blinked back about there. And that really, really annoyed me. So after, as I said, talking to Richard a little bit, I decided to try the DVRs as a backup. But because of my uncomfortableness with buying from overseas vendors, I limited myself to buying from U.S. vendors, which really increases your cost. Okay, next. All right, so the first rabbit hole I went down was looked on eBay, and there's these boxes that are called digital video recorders for security, and they're about yay big. They have no monitor, no nothing on them, no name brand. They sell for 25 bucks shipped. I got one of those, added the SD card for memory. The manual they sent was, I would have been better off if they sent nothing. Really, it was just horrible. At first it didn't work at all. I did some searching online. I found, oh, the SD card I bought wasn't fast enough. So I bought a faster SD card, for another 15 bucks at it or whatever the SD card took. And it still was not working effectively. It sort of worked, but it was not reliable. The data coming out was horrible. And I just gave it up as a lost cause, and I gave it to someone else, and he probably will hate me for the rest of my life because I gave it to him. Next. Okay, and then I started getting into the more sophisticated DVRs, and the general features of the 4 that I purchased to date, all of them have displays. So it's like, here's a little one here. I'll pass this around in a little while, but it has a display on the front. One of them, 3 of the 4 have displays that are about 2.5 inches like this. One of them has a 4.5-inch display that is just beautiful. I mean, the display is marvelous on that thing. These are okay, useful, but that one just has a beautiful display. Every one of them saves every other field at 30 hertz. You do not get them. They all have built-in batteries, and the batteries seem to last a long time. I have not had a battery die yet. One of these days I'll have to do a duration test. I don't know, Richard, have you ever tested to see how long your batteries last in any years? No, I mean, how long you can leave it on at one time. Is it hours? 4 or 5 hours. Great. Yeah, I have not gone that far, but the batteries seem great on the things. They're small, like you can see, they're very small, much smaller than the old ZRs we use. Real lightweight and compact. They all require an SD card, the ones I have. And very surprisingly to me, none of them have timed recording. Now, considering these are marketed for people to do covert recording, you think you would want to program that in, so these are intended to wear on your body, and this one actually came with a camera that looks like a button that I could put there. You'd think you wouldn't want to run it until, like, okay, I'm going into the meeting with whoever at 4:15, I'm going to start the video then, and you could just set that up, but you can't.
See, those are the Chinese ones, right?
These are all Chinese, but I buy them from U.S. vendors.
I've got 4 of those, and they're down on the shelf, but never seen something on them.
Yeah. And though I've only used it on the one, most of them do have a 1/4-20 hole for putting them on a tripod, which for my one with the big display is kind of nice. Okay, next. Okay, so we'll go through the 4 of them that I purchased. So the first one I got was one I found on eBay for 40 bucks used with no documentation. And it's probably 4 or 5 years old. It's extremely well built. I swear you could run it over with a car and it would be in one place. The back's metal and the front is really firm plastic. But it's just incredibly difficult to use and set up. And it always wants to default back to the low res mode. So every time I've got to go through a whole bunch of menus to get it in high res to do the type of data we want to collect. Does have a decent monitor on it, and like I said, I just got it used with no knowledge of it, and it was like, oh, this doesn't work too bad. Then I'm going to take the next step down the rabbit hole and buy a new one. Go to the next one. Okay, then the next one I got was the one with the big screen. So this one is one that's intended for people who do radio-controlled airplanes. For what is it, the view from first person or whatever you call it. $150, has a big screen, and it has a RF receiver built into it, which I will never use, but it's there. Very easy to use, and it's really good. And at times I found it even improves my signal-to-noise ratio. And I mean that jokingly, but if you measure it, you get a higher signal-to-noise ratio because it blacks out the background and your noise seems to go down. I think it's a 4.5. It's a beautiful color display. If I ran out of room in my luggage, or I would have brought it with me, but I was really right up against it in my luggage this trip. But for $150, I think that's a pretty good way to go if you need a backup. Like I said, I'm personally not going to use them as my primary recorder, but backup recording method. Okay, next. And it was like, oh, okay, now we're going to try one more. So I keep saying, one more. This will be the one that has really great recording. And so then I went down to the $300 rabbit hole, and this is one that looks just like this, but isn't high def. And it worked okay. It generates the most data per second in kilobits than any of the others. Doesn't really do any good that I found. And then I found when I went to turn it on the other day that it's dead after 6 months. So I don't know how, it took me 3 or 4 emails to the vendor before they would even acknowledge my existence, because they do have a 1-year warranty, and they finally said, okay, send it back. I get the impression these vendors, by the way, are one-man companies, you know, where this is something they do on the side. Okay, next. And then my final trip down was I started communicating with the guy from Stunt Cams, and this guy isn't into selling cameras for spying. This guy's into selling cameras for mounting on your dirt bike and stuff like that. So talking to him, he said, oh, I sell this camera, and this by far is the cheapest camera you can get that will record at 60 hertz. He said there's none others that are below $1,000 that you can buy that will record at 60 hertz. And that's this one here. You can pass that around if people want to. 60 hertz of what? Yeah, that's certainly the question, Steve. It's what I interpreted as every field, and that's what I asked him about specifically and all. And I did multiple tests. I talked to Walt, and I asked Walt if there's something I'm missing or whatever, and he said, no, try this test. And I did exactly what Walt said, and it's recording every other field, period. Argued with the vendor, and the vendor has no clue what I'm talking about. No clue. I kept asking him, well, how do you know it's recording at 60 hertz? He wouldn't answer the question.
It can be recording 60 hertz, but that's not the same thing as repeating. It could be recording at 60 hertz, but just replicating the beatings. What you want is to record all the beatings.
Yeah.
And that's a different question.
So anyway, it was claimed to be high def and do this and all, and you know, it's a nice backup unit, but there ain't nothing special about it, other than it's still running compared to the other one. Okay, next. So here's just the features of the 4 of them that I went through. Some of them produce different file formats, you know, the MP4s versus AVIs and movie. Automobile mode is, I'll talk about that in a second. There's a reason why I point that out. And screen resolution, like I said, you know, if you wanted to just get one for a backup, the ready-made RC one, because of that display, is where I would go. Price. Okay, next. And just the image sizes of what it records and how many kilobits per second with a typical recording. And this I did on, well, okay, doesn't matter. Okay, so as I said earlier, there's no way you can do a timed recording of these, or so I thought, but then it suddenly occurred to me that there's this automobile mode built into the last 2 I got on these that are designed so you can hook them up to your cigarette lighter in your car, and as soon as you start your car, they'll start recording. And this is for, you know, accident cameras or whatever. So I bought a timer off of eBay. For $7, you can buy a timer, a 12-volt timer that turns on and off anytime you program in. So I just made, I think the next slide shows a picture of it. Oh yeah, and the vendors don't even know they have this feature, by the way. So here's a $7 ship to me timer off of eBay, and I got a cigarette lighter adapter here you plug into your DVR, and I've got the standard, what is it, the 5 by 2.5 millimeter or whatever input to it, and you just program the time. You put your DVR in this automobile mode, and it works. It turns on and off, and that way you can do a timed recording, and it works great. And like I said, it cost me, I don't know, probably $10 in parts and 15 minutes of soldering. Okay, next slide. So here's another time where we've got videos, because I just wanted to show the difference. I was hoping to show them side by side. I'm not sure how this is going to work out. But when you run them, you can definitely see there, I think I recorded on the one that's got passed around, that one definitely looks grainier and less satisfying than the one that was recorded on the old Canon.
One element of this we talked about in the file format, because then next we talked about the compression was mostly the same thing.
Yeah.
Possibly the movie file was different. But that's pretty good compression.
Yeah, they're,
So that's one of the other issues with the DVR.
yeah, I don't know how well it's going to show up, Ted, so if it takes too long, if we're running behind, we can punt on that. That's the other one. Yeah, that's the DVR one there. Yeah, you can hardly see it. Yeah, well, let's just punt on that. If people want to look, I can show you offline what those videos look like. Okay, then next slide, please. Okay, so I did a couple experiments with SNR. Here's the one I'll show here. This was a recent asteroid occultation that I had a miss on, that I took 3 of the stars off and compared the direct laptop SNR to the DVR's SNR. And you can see there was a definite loss in signal noise ratio going with the DVR. Okay, next. And this isn't going to work either. This is a video. What was the positive we had about a week and a half ago? Camilla. So this is the video that Gary Fishcorn took for us. He had a positive, and I gave Gary this. This is the big DVR, the one with the good screen. I gave him that, and I gave him a Canon, and he had trouble getting on field. But he had set up the DVR in advance, and he got the DVR running while he was still hunting around for it, and got on field like literally with seconds to go, and never got the Canon running. So I got the data from him, and it's like, this is just really horrible. It was an 8-inch telescope with an 11th magnitude, and he has an old GenWack 902H, which comes out of the same factory as the Latex, but it's the equivalent of the Supreme, not the Ultimate. And I could tell he had a positive, but different ways I would analyze it, I was getting 1 or 2 second errors, especially on the R. So I had to send it off to Tony, and Tony did a much better extraction on it, and Tony got good bulletproof data out of it in the end, but his comment, I don't know if he wants to say anything here, was that he thought it was a pretty horrendous looking video as well. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. But it did bail us out. We would not have had that positive if we didn't have an easy way to record. So other than the quality and the fact that the one broke already, I think they're really nicely featured and compact, and I really like having them for backup. I just feel much better. Even going directly to the computer now, I feel better having a backup. And if you have targets that have good signal noise ratio and good magnitude drop, I think they're perfectly serviceable. And like I said, I routinely use them for backup on every observation I make now, except last night. Okay, and I think that is the end of that presentation.